everybody, what's going on? Welcome to episode 3 of the Wolf Den podcast. I'm your host, Otto Man, and I'm here with my boy Frenchie.
What's up? It's Frenchie from Frenchie's World, doing podcast episode 3. Today we're going to be talking a little bit more about Bad Batch. It should be a good episode. I apologize about the absence. It's 100 plus in Washington last week, so I wasn't really in the mood to be sitting on a hot computer.
Yeah, Frenchie's losing power and all that stuff, but we're back now, and we're going to be reviewing 2 episodes now, because 2 episodes have passed, 9 and 10. We're going to pick up pretty much right where we left off with some of our theories and what we were thinking with episode 8, because some stuff did come to fruition. We did get some answers, despite not moving too terribly far in the plot. We did get some important answers, but before we go into the details, just like a generic sort of overall assessment of 9 and 10, Frenchie. 1 to 10, just generic. What did you think?
So I think episode 9 would be it was a good plot moving forward for the Bad Batch story. If I were to rate it, like you said, 1 through 10, I'd probably give it like a 7. It was a little like it's another rescue mission type deal. And then 10, I don't know. I had mixed emotions about 10. It was a bit of counterintuitive toward episode 9. And I'll explain more when we start talking about the episodes on why I say that. But I'd give episode 10 like maybe a 5 or a 6. I thought it was a kind of a more boring, bland episode and kind of like a step backward. It built a little bit more, but for the most part I feel like it was a step backwards. That's just my intuitive on the episode.
Yeah, dude, I was thinking about what you were saying episode 9. When you gave it a 7, I mean, I think that's a really fair score because we got answers, right? Some answers that we were hoping to get after episode 8. So I couldn't really give it a reason to go above a 7 because nothing really profound happened. And then, yeah, in episode 10, probably a 5 or a 6. So why don't we go into what you were saying? Let's start with why it was counterintuitive, right? So I'll start just a little bit on it because, first of all, episode 9 focuses on rescuing Omega, and then episode 10 is telling her to sit out. So you want to talk a little bit more about what we think about that? And it's just kind of strange, I guess. I mean, she's been on dangerous stuff before. I can see why. Being in the heart of old separatist territory, which is now the Empire, but I don't know. I mean, she was kind of on a conveyor belt headed into lava on Corellia, so
yeah, you hit that right on the head with the hammer there. But yeah, like you said, she's been in dangerous situations before, and then you go and save her in episode 9, and episode 10 you're like, stay back with this untrustworthy character.
Yeah,
she's only in it for the credits. Like, if I feel like if an Imperial or a bounty hunter came up to her and was like, do you know where Omega is? And she's like, for a price, I guarantee you there's a price that she would rat Omega out and be like, oh yeah, she's in the back. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
She's underworld scum. Like, I mean, nothing against her, but like, she's underworld scum. She's not gonna protect Omega if it comes to credits.
Yeah.
She's all about the money.
Yeah, and she said she would. She said she would because, you guys doing jobs makes me money. But again, the right price with an underworld person. But I mean, I think she would still make the decision blinded by the fact that she would have to face, their fury. But it's still a possibility, no doubt.
Yeah, it's just weird to me that episode 9, Hunter's all, don't worry, you're never going back to Camino, blah, 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 blah. And then the next episode, the beginning of the next episode, he's like, hey, I know I swore to protect you and you're not going anywhere, but you're staying here with somebody I don't really trust. So I feel like,
yeah,
if he's supposed to be quote unquote the father figure as they are making him out to be for Omega, being a father myself, I'm not going to leave my kid or anybody I'm watching with somebody I don't trust. I mean, he literally is doing jobs for Sid because he needs money. Like,
yep.
that there's no trust boundary between it. So I feel like it's a back step in the direction that episode 9 was taking us. And then at the same time, what the hell was episode 10? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
why did we have to go save the separatists? Like, what?
oh no,
You know
hang
what I
on.
mean?
We're putting the cart before the horse a little bit. We got because we got to talk about the answers that we got in episode 9 that were important. So
True, true.
so
Yeah.
it did bring up some more questions as to like background lore, but let's talk about the answers we wanted, right? In the previous one, we see the Prime Minister of Kamino and Tan Wei talking about bounty hunters, right? Supposedly more than one bounty hunter. And we had learned that Cad Bane was also after Omega, after already knowing that Fennec Shand was also after Omega, right? So we didn't know who, or if they were both working for the Kaminoans. We know that Cad Bane definitely was, but who was Fennec Shand working for, right? So in episode 9, we see that it's actually they're working against each other, but for the same people, right? So Nala Se is wanting to keep Omega safe, so she sends Fennec Shand to get Omega, and then the Prime Minister sends Cad Bane, and yeah. So what did you think about that?
So when we see Tanway get just absolutely smacked in the face with
Oh
a bolt,
absolutely murdered. Like not even like just unarmed and everything, just murdered.
Yeah. I was like, oh shit, who just blasted her? Who beat Cad Bane to the punch? And then Fennec Shand walks out, and I'm like, oh. But I thought that she was working for the Prime Minister. And so like I was sitting there wondering the whole episode, like, who hired her if it wasn't the Prime Minister? Because I thought she was trying to get Omega back to Kamino. But come to find out, she's been trying to protect Omega this whole time. She hasn't been trying to get her back to Kamino at all. So back when she's on, what was that, Pantora? That was Pantora, right? When they meet her the first time?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. So when she's on Pantora, it brought me back to that episode, which I think was like episode 5 or 6. I was like, so was she just trying to protect her then too? And she was just trying to get her out of Bad Batch hands? Or was at that time, was she trying to get her back to Kamino? And then to see her outdo Cad Bane, and at this time, she's a newer bounty hunter. She's not the legend that we see in Mandalorian, where she never misses a shot. She's still a newer bounty hunter, and Cad Bane is a veteran. I mean, he's gone up against Jedi and won. So to see her outdo him, it was a nice twist. And then to see her actually trying to help Omega, even though Omega didn't see it that way, it was also a nice add in to see that, okay, she's not as bad as we thought. And then it's kind of funny because it brings up, well, where does that leave the Camino contingency plan? Because if the Prime Minister has his own people working against him, then where does that leave the contingency plan? Is the contingency plan still Omega, or what is it?
Right, because when Nala Se, was talking to the Prime Minister, it was implied that there were multiple bounty hunters. So is the Prime Minister, like, I wonder if they, because like you said, originally when we see Fennec Shand trying to get Omega, was she still trying to help her then? Or did Nala Se then offer Fennec Shand more money to, like, look, like, don't tell the Prime Minister, etc. If you get a hold of Omega first, don't bring her back, type deal. So, yeah, that's a good point. Like, at what point was there a turncoat? Was she always working for them or not? I remember in the preview, I could tell that Fennec Shand was going to be helping Omega in some way, because in the preview of the episode, we see her sort of kneeling in front of Omega in like a very, like close sort of intimate type way. Like almost like a mom,
almost
or
almost
someone
like
trying
a friendly gesture.
Yeah, friendly. So that was pretty cool.
Well, we did get the answer of who Cad Bane was officially working for. and we got to see what the Prime Minister's plan for Omega was. It was to extract her DNA and then Terminator. That's it.
Right.
End of story. And we also discovered that she is basically the closest thing Boba Fett has to a sister.
Right. Yeah. So that's a good point when you say that they were just going to terminate her, right? So we still don't know what the DNA is going to be for. We pretty much all predicted that they wanted her DNA for something. Still don't know what, but it was sort of what is Omega's fate. So just to see now that they're just after her DNA and that's it. That kind of complicates things, especially if she gets captured again and is brought back to Kamino. So let's talk about. Well, some other questions were brought up in episode 9, right? So we see this old Kaminoan cloning facility. It's had the same designs as Kamino, as Omega pointed out. Like the doors were the same and the structures were the same. Instead of being on pillars on water, they were floating, sort of like Bespin. And then at one point, we do see one of the failed, what we think clones come out of the containment tank, and it kind of looked like a gray alien, right? It just kind of looked like the classic sort of gray alien, but it looked like a giant Kaminoan, like the facial structure wise. So I don't know, like if the Kaminoans were trying to breed better versions of themselves, or if so that was.
Continue.
I was just gonna. No, that's good. So were we seeing an earlier version? What was that project? Right? Was it abandoned because it failed? Was it abandoned just? I don't know. They didn't have any reason to keep it going. Why would they abandon entire cities? Right.
Right. So also in that scene, when just before the gray alien, as we're calling it, drops onto Fennec, it shows in one of the other test tubes a species that doesn't look Kaminoan at all. It looked kind of more fat in the face, and I slowed down the frames on it back when I was reviewing the episode. It almost looks like a Solistan.
Oh.
It has like that pancake face.
Yeah, the pancake face. The layers of pancakes, dude.
Yeah, man. Like it almost looks like that. I had to slow down the frames because like you only see it for a short second, and it's a dark room, really dark scene. But if you slow it down, you can actually see that it looks like a Solistan. It might not be. I don't know why they'd be cloning Solistans, but they also just clone for money.
Right. Well, I think the other thing too is until you can clone what you want, you have to know that you can clone anything.
Right, and that's why I think it's a failed testing facility. But at the same time, Kamino and Lore, they became such good cloners because they almost went extinct.
Right, so yeah, I was going to branch off into that. So they almost went extinct, so they needed to clone themselves. But the theory that we have here is, well, the Kaminoans were native to Kamino before it flooded, right? But this was on a different planet. So were they in their contingency to save their species also thinking about relocating, and was that an early settlement, right? So what prompted them to have cloning facilities on other planets? Because eventually they obviously mastered cloning, and maybe it just came to the point where, well, we don't need to move planets and we can just have our own native cloning program on our home planet, even though the planet itself has changed. So yeah, what do you think about how that sort of works out with being native to Kamino but having cloning programs on other planets, and like what they could be doing?
So it leads me to question, how many other cloning facilities do they have on what other planets? Because up until now, we always thought Kamino was the only place that they had cloning facilities. Obviously, through just like paying attention in Star Wars TV shows and reading books and things like that, we know there's other cloning facilities. Especially during the Clone Wars, the Emperor literally had a cloning facility on Coruscant, but it wasn't Kamino or Kaminoan cloning. It was just basic
Well, I'm pretty sure
genetic
that's where.
cloning.
Well, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure. Isn't that where the Coruscant Guard? Because I don't think the Coruscant Guard was made on Camino. That's why I think that
100%.
they. Because that's why they were different. That's why I think that they knew about 66 and they were just kind of cool with it because they were bred differently, separate, and they didn't really see other clones as their brothers.
Correct. That's why they were so. That's why they were known as the security force, and that's why all the other clones hated the Coruscant Guard so much.
Yeah.
Um,
They're like
because they
MPs in the
weren't like
military,
them.
right, Frenchie?
Right. Absolutely. They were literally MPs in comparison to modern day military.
Don't get
Every
Frenchie
other
going on the
unit
MPs.
does not like them. Yeah, I'm not gonna get started. We're here to talk about Star Wars, not not MPs in the military. But yes, that is essentially the equivalent. That's why they were such a good security force because they were loyal to the emperor and the emperor alone. Whereas, like a Jedi could tell a Coruscant Guard to do something, and they're gonna look at the emperor. Whereas on the battlefield, a Jedi is going to tell a clone to do something, and Roger that, Commander, and they're going to move out.
Right, and they're fight. We
Um,
still see it instilled in Echo, where Echo is a Reg, and he fought for the Republic and still believes in the Republic. Same thing with Rex, things of that nature. So, um, but yeah, we even see when General Skywalker threatened Fox, and
yeah,
Fox was like, "Nope, you're not going in." Like, because the Chancellor, actually,
yeah,
no, it was Tarkin. It was Tarkin. He was under
Tarkin.
orders of Tarkin, who wasn't. And it's funny because my Google Home just went off. There we go. I'll cut that out. Don't worry. But he was under orders from Tarkin, and General Skywalker was a higher rank than Tarkin at the time. But I think Tarkin being held in higher regard with the Chancellor, and just given the jurisdiction of the Jedi, he couldn't do anything. So it's just that was a weird dynamic there. But yeah, the Coruscant Guard is completely apathetic.
Yeah. So, rolling back onto this whole multiple cloning facilities, that opens up the possibility of one of these cloning facilities might still be active, and that might be their contingency plan. They might have a clone army, a anti trooper per
Right,
se,
because in Legends
as
they
we
were
see.
anti-clones.
Right. So they might have one of these armies already being built. So, you have the whole waiting period for them to develop. They might have already been building these guys for all we know, or they might be speeding up the process more. Because if you ever played the original Battlefront 2, they literally state because of the way that they were cloned, they weren't superior to the 501st clones. I mean, obviously, 501st is the most badass legion in the freaking Grand Army of the Republic and the Empire, but regardless, that's stated because they weren't cloned the same way. So
Right.
they could be on another cloning facility and they might bring them in. Or they might need Omega to start this cloning facility. And that might be why they were having them meet in this off world cloning facility in the beginning, or to begin with, because they were trying to get the DNA from Omega at this cloning facility and then bring the DNA back to Camino.
That's a
Keep it
good point. Or
all under
maybe
the
or maybe
Emperor's
they could have
nose.
just yeah, that's a good point. Or maybe they could have just maybe part of because I mean we saw multiple sort of floating structures, right? So, what if part of that was like still active or maybe it was just dormant, right? Maybe it was dormant because like you said, how do you keep an army secret? Well, maybe you just fully grow them and keep them in stasis, right?
Right.
So maybe the whole plan was meet here, get Omega, and then do everything you need to do at that facility. I didn't even think of that, so that's a good point. And then yeah, and then she's done, and then your sleeper cell army is ready to go. But of course, that still begs the question of because we know she's a good thinker, and we'll get into that when we talk about episode 10. So we know she's really intuitive, right? She's got a little piece of the Bad Batch, in her. She's got first gen DNA. I mean, she's top notch. So are they just trying to get her mental prowess, right? Like just sort of take her DNA and get that sort of intuitiveness downloaded into the minds of, and just have really good clones, or are they trying to make direct copies? Like, are they? I mean, so we still don't know what they want specifically for the DNA.
Yeah, the only thing we know for sure about the DNA is that it's first gen, unaltered for the most part, it's unaltered because they state that there's only one other like her, and that's Boba, or as they call him, Alpha. And if you know anything, Alpha means first, Omega means last. So Alpha and Omega, also in like a wolf pack, it's the top notch. Um, However, he goes by Boba, um, not Alpha. He also wants nothing to do with the cloning facility. He wants nothing to do with Camino. He doesn't even look at clones as his brothers. So I feel like they're looking at Omega as the only option because he doesn't exist to the Kaminoans at this point. He's off radar. After his failed attempts at killing Mace Windu, he went gone. I also wanted to bring this up before we jump into episode 10. Did you notice Cad Bane's head?
Yeah.
How he has that metal plate.
Yeah, so people were thinking that the duel between him and Boba took place or something.
I think it did because in that unfinished duel, Boba's helmet gets hit in the exact spot that he has the dent. And Cad Bane also gets hit in the head, which would be exactly where the metal plate is, the cybernetics. So that leads me to think they made that canon without showing it on screen. And then their way of showing it on screen was his duel with Hunter in episode 8.
Yeah.
But
yep.
That's just what I was thinking. But I don't want to sit on episode 9 too much. So let's hop into episode 10 unless there's anything else you want to bring up.
No. So yeah, episode 10. So again, this is kind of the knuckleball here. So let's just start from the beginning, I guess. So in the beginning, Bad Batch got another job. They got to go rescue pretty much the head of the Separatists, former head of the Separatists. But they tell Omega to stay behind for whatever reason. It's not like I understand if the mission goes bad, they get swarmed, right? Because they are like deep in enemy territory. But again, I mean, it's not anything she hasn't been through before. And then even later in the episode, Hunter slips up and gives Tech an order to go with Omega, but Omega wasn't with them, which implies that if she was there, is it habit or is it just and he was just being overprotective, which I think is the case. I think Omega was right in saying that he was just being overly protective. So, I mean, what do you think about that point? As far as, because like you were saying, it's counterintuitive to the previous episode, and it's just kind of strange.
I think his heart was in the right place. I think he was just trying to be protective of Omega. He almost lost her to Cad Bane, and the Kaminoans. So I think he was just trying to be protective, but at the same time, like you said, he gave Tech an order to go with Omega, and Omega wasn't there. So, he sees her as a part of the team and part of the family, but it's almost like he didn't trust her, not necessarily trust her enough, but he just didn't trust himself enough to not lose her again. And you did state that, they're deep in heavy enemy territory, which brings me to something I brought up the other day after we watched the episode. Why the hell were they using stun rounds? I get when they were trying to be sneaky, but after their cover was blown, you're stunning these troopers. They don't give a rat's ass who you were or who you are. Excuse me. You stun them, they're going to get back up, and you still have to fight them. Once your cover is blown, just blast them, man.
Yeah, I mean, they were blasting them in previous episodes. I think, I don't know, I think that just has to go with, Dave Filoni's big heart. It would have been a slaughter. You see how many clones they would have killed? That would have been insane.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how they go.
What I was going to bring up was Filoni. Yeah. I think he was just being soft, and I don't want soft. You know what I mean? He's been so brutal with them, and then he just turned around and made them soft.
Yeah, I mean, clones would get mowed down in.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, clones got mowed down in legions. He didn't have any problem with that when it was battle droids. So I guess that's what are we gonna see going forward as far as that when they have more encounters? The other part that we see is Omega. Obviously, like we were saying, she's really mentally intuitive and smart, so she picks up gambling. The strategy game, Dejarik. And in every episode that we see, we get a little bit of foreshadowing. And for the next episode, I'm saying again a lot, Frenchie. You gotta stop me. Why are you letting me do that? So,
Because I do
it. So, at the end of the episode, well, not even at the end. It was when I'm losing my train of thought here, so I'm gonna pause so I can edit it out. So I can just kind of think here. End of the episode. What happened at the end, Frenchie? Remind me. I'm gonna cut this part out.
Hunter and Bad Batch came back to see her gambling.
Right. So she was gambling, and then okay.
But she gambled for like half the episode.
Right. Okay. Okay. So continuing. So yeah, we see her gambling, and she was able to pay off the debt at the end. So does that free the Bad Batch from having to work with Sid? Like, what are they gonna do now? And I think as far as foreshadowing, so I'm going to read them that part of the article that I read to you. So this is an article from comicbook.com. I'll put the link in the description. That was just talking about what is Omega's overall purpose, right? So I'm going to just read this verbatim and have a little picture on the screen here. So the purpose of Omega's introduction into Star Wars canon is still unclear. The girl is made of Jango Fett, and her enhancements make her a master strategist, not just in games and battle, but reading and intuiting the thoughts and actions of others. Aside from that impressive, that genetic foundation and biological enhancement, Omega is getting a life or death training in military battle, bounty hunting, battle tactics, and all sorts of other hard knock experience while she's on the run with Clone Force 99. So the question is, where does this all lead? Who does Omega become down the line, provided she survives? Omega's mythology is now directly connected to Boba Fett and Fennec Shand, as the latter was the bounty hunter hired to retrieve and protect Omega by her creator, Nala Se. Those are timely connections, since Star Wars will debut its Book of Boba Fett event series starring Boba Fett and Fennec Shand later this year. From what we're witnessing in the Bad Batch, it would be kind of exciting, I would beg to differ, to see Boba Fett have to face a grown-up and experienced Omega, who'd probably be going by a new name in the Book of Boba Fett. Boba's sister is just about the only person in the galaxy more badass than he is, still would debate that. Omega would probably be the biggest threat to Boba's plan to take over the Star Wars underworld in Jabba Hutt's absence, if her Dejarik game is any indication. And I know I just talked a shit ton, but I'm going to say we did see Omega lose her innocence just a teeny tiny bit. Because, like, how she kind of mimics other people, like any child does, you pick up from adults, right? So she wasn't going to gamble for Sid until she said, what's my cut, right? Rather than just keeping her sort of naive children thing, she picked up on, well, what am I getting out of it, right? So, do we see, has this whole series been a foreshadowing into the Bad Batch possibly showing up in Book of Boba as just mercenaries? So, I mean, what do you think about that? Right, because I mean, it's as much as this episode seems useless, Filoni, like, they're good at doing everything for a reason, right? It's kind of like when they had Ahsoka. We all hated Ahsoka, and then she develops into like the best character ever. Like, everyone loves her, right? So even though this
4 episodes.
Right, and so even though that this episode again seems useless, it's for a reason, and they'll have subtle nods to foreshadowing. Like, they give us just enough info to make these connections. So I mean, where do you see her future going as we supposedly start to get to the end of the season here? Because we're at episode 10, which means there's only 6 left.
So I think if she survives the Bad Batch, I think there is a chance we might see her come up in Book of Fett, and that's because the way they end season 2 of Mandalorian is Fett and Shan are in Jabba's palace. This is obviously going to bring attention to people. So if she is out there as a mercenary or a bounty hunter, she's going to be like, oh, Boba Fett's alive. Because everybody thinks he's dead. Fortuna Bib literally says it. Boba, I thought you were dead before he gets fucking murked. Thank God. But
yeah, finally.
This is going to bring the attention to people like from all over the galaxy, like, oh, Boba Fett's alive. Omega, at this point, will probably know Boba is her closest thing to a real brother. You know what I mean? Um, so will she go and either join forces with him, or will she go and try and take his spot, his throne,
Mm.
per se? Um, and then also, Fennec Shan is with him. Fennec and Omega at this point are going to have a history. I mean, she's tried to take her twice as a kid, so that's going to bring
Yeah,
up the history.
and then if Omega and the Bad Batch got involved with the underworld, Fennec would have heard about it. And we also even see Bib. We even see Bib in Bad Batch briefly talking to Sid. So again, there's that
Right.
connection with Jabba.
Right. So if they do stay connected with Sid or any other part of the underworld, or at least Omega, and I don't want to see her in Book of Fett because I think she just needs to have her own thing in Bad Batch, and then that's the end of it. But if she is, it is what it is. Everything happens for a reason. I think that'll be how it happens. Is we'll find out the connection through Sid or another part of the underworld, and her and what's ever left of Bad Batch. Because I'm crossing my fingers, we have a little bit of Bad Batch bloodshed. As sad as it'll be, I think it'll be a good way for the Bad Batch to go out.
Yeah, it'd be fitting, like a Rogue One style.
Right, almost like Bad Batch is the last of the Republic. You know what I mean? So for them to go down in a blaze of glory is like the Empire ridding the galaxy of what's left of the Republic. Obviously not the case because you still have Jedi like Obi-Wan and things like that.
And how every single Jedi survived 66.
Oh yeah.
Every single one.
Every single one. That's right.
Yeah.
The Order didn't really get damaged. It's just all a big hoax. A Fugazi.
Right. Yeah, no, like Ki-Adi-Mundi's species actually has a complete regenerative ability, so he just kind of woke up. Yeah, so.
Kit Fisto didn't actually get stabbed.
Yeah, no, missed all of his organs and cauterized the wounds, so he was alright.
But yeah, I think if we do see her in Fett, it'll be an episode, maybe 2. Or, like I was saying, she might team up with Boba. Brother sister ruling the galaxy type deal.
Yeah.
Because at this point, there's no Empire. There's the New Republic, but literally like every other Republic, the Outer Rim means nothing to the Republic. For whatever reason, they always just leave the Outer Rim alone. And that's where all the problems start and end. So you would think they would have learned over thousands of years of the same thing happening, but they never do. I think they're gonna either leave her alone and she's either gonna die, or just that's gonna be the end of her story. Is Bad Batch. That's it, done. And Fett's gonna have his own little thing, or but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see for sure. But like you said, Filoni and the team he has, they do a great job. But even the most pointless episodes, they still have foreshadowing and like head nods, like, "Hey, pay attention here." But like you said, with the gambling and things like that, that's a lead into the underworld. That's how it all starts. 90% of the time, it's either revenge or you're just trying to make credits. So we'll see.
Yeah, doing what you're good at.
Right. But like you did say, she paid off their debt with Sid plus some. So are they going to keep working for Sid, or are we going to see the movement forward of Camino and Crosshair, which we now haven't seen for 2 episodes again?
Yeah, well, I think that also goes into the it's either you like or hate Omega, right? Sort of like the baby Yoda thing. It's like, are we watching The Mandalorian or are we watching the Baby Yoda show? And Ahsoka Tano, we don't like her, and then she develops. So maybe this is where we just see Omega like, ugh, this is annoying, and then, but then maybe she comes back in Book of Boba Fett as like a total like badass character that we can all get behind. And I think maybe even like I said, we're on episode 10. There's 6 left. And with an episode like this, where it doesn't have any, it just gives, again, those sort of like nods and foreshadowing to what the Bad Batch is becoming, what they could become, but not anything like super duper obvious that really progresses the story. So I think even more than last time when we talked in episode 1 of are we going to see a second season. I'm starting to lean probably 60-40 yes, in my opinion, just because of the slow burn that we've been getting. But again, I mean, 6 episodes is still a lot. There's still a lot that they can do. Again, if we assume that the final, even 2 episodes. I mean, same thing with season 7, right? With how they split up the finales and they were long, like longer episodes. So maybe we even get 2 longer episodes at the end that really shape things, or an hour long event, or an hour and a half. Who knows?
Yeah, it's gonna be a wait and see kind of game. You know, as they teach you in the military, it's hurry up and wait.
Yeah, hurry up.
We're hurry up and watching these episodes, hoping for something exciting to happen. But really, it's all going to come down to the finale, on how does it end? Do we get a second season? But I'm with you. I'm still split 50-50. I'm not really leaning 60-40 yet, but I'm split 50-50. There's going to be a second season. When the series started, I definitely thought it was going to be a 1 season go, because Disney's been doing that with a lot of shows lately. Not just Star
same
Wars
here.
content,
Yeah,
but Disney's definitely been doing a lot of like 1 season. Hey, here's a new show by Disney Plus. Oh, it's 1 season. Here we're throwing another new one. Here you go. Watch this one. Oh, it's 1 season. So I had that going into the series, but it's all going to come down to the season finale, which is still 6 episodes away. So it could be anything. It could be the uprising. It might just be a cliffhanger. You know, if it's the uprising, I think it's going to be the end of the season or the series. If it's a cliffhanger, we're definitely going to have a season 2.
Yeah, for sure.
If they end it with the uprising, then that's just going to be the end of it, I think. If they do have an uprising, I don't know how it's going to go. But the way that the Bad Batch is shaping up with Omega, we don't know how Crosshair is yet. And then we also see, you know, where are they going to get this army from? And then we see how the Empire is, but we haven't really seen a lot of that lately. It's just kind of been like quick glimpses of Camino and how the Empire is going. And then obviously Crosshair, he's all sorts of messed up right now, so like we don't know what's going to happen with him. But we know how Tarkin is with clones, so we'll have to keep that in mind as well. Is he just going to kind of, oh, Crosshair, you failed. Like I knew you would because you're a clone. Bye-bye. Yeah, so.
Order 66, his own clone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely going to be Order 6. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah. So, yeah, so we still have a lot to resolve. I think the other thing, too, is, like, I have a ton of faith in Filoni. I really do. Because, I like Omega bothered me in the beginning, but that's because I was blinded, and then I remembered, like, well, Filoni is known to do this with characters already. And like we said, everything has its own reason. So I think either way, if we get a second season, or if they show up in Book of Boba Fett, or if we don't get a second season, I think it'll wrap up really well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he definitely, he's never failed us yet as far as Star Wars animated TV shows. So
yeah, and it's only gotten better. I mean, season 7 was just the end. I mean, the end of season 7, it was just incredible. And looking for more of that, and we see that these episodes in Bad Batch are, I mean, they're all cinematic. They're just the animation and the cinematography is just all gotten so much more advanced. I would love to see, like, imagine like a remaster of the whole Clone Wars series. Like, it would be insane.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
That's so unrealistic though. Like, that's insane. But that would be really cool. Just a fun little thing to think about. So I think either way we're going to be pleased, and I think now that Filoni's the head of Star Wars, if he really wanted to push Disney, like if he had plans for a second season, but if Disney didn't want it, I think he could really have some pull there. If he just wanted to like bring the story out, they've been doing really good at fan service, like we've said for the past, years now. I mean at this point we're practically writing the episodes. I mean, everyone knew it was going to happen with Wrecker, right? And that was all. I mean, the series was done. It was finished. It's not like they're making an episode every week, but we knew it was going to happen. And I think that also speaks to we should be careful what we wish for as well. But I think we'll be satisfied either way. And I think just looking forward to when we have these really like just side questy uh
Episodes.
these side questy episodes. Uh Bigger picture, trust in Filoni. So everything in the episode was for a reason. Maybe it was the distraction, right? Like they had us looking for the mission. Like, why are they on this mission? It's totally useless. Like, yeah, that's the point, because your eyes should really be looking at what's happening with Omega and how she's developing, right? So,
Yeah,
because Filoni's sneaky that way, man. He's clever. He's inquisitive with the way he story tells.
Yeah, he really, he'll throw one thing at you and like, hey, pay attention to this, and the whole time paying attention at it, the real story is going on in the scene background, like you said, pay attention to Omega, but nobody is, and then they're like, oh, I didn't even see that coming, and he's like, well, ha, you should have. But I think episode nine answered a lot of questions, and then I think it also brought up more questions that hopefully we'll get answers to, but if we don't, I feel like our own headcanon can answer those questions. So, that's always going to be Star Wars. You're always going to have those, well, what ifs, and, well, this is a plot hole, and this is a plot hole, and then this fills up this plot hole, but it opens this plot hole. Kind of like for just a quick example before we wrap this up, in Rebels, before Bad Batch is a thing, in Rebels, Rex states that he took his own chip out. And then season 7, we find out Ahsoka takes his chip out. In Bad Batch, they ask how it works, and he said, I don't know, this is the first time I've been on this end of it. So it kind of like Rebels opens or closes this plot hole of, well, how did Rex escape Order 66, and then we see in season 7 that he didn't, and then Bad Batch really just unwinds the whole plot that got closed in Rebels with the inhibitor chips, and then it throws a big old spaghetti meatball in the middle, and we're like, figure it out, which one's real, which one's the right answer.
Oh yeah, he also said that he didn't turn on his Jedi, but he initially did. Right. But I think what he was trying to say in that was like he wouldn't have done it on purpose, but like we know that, right? Like none of the clones would have done it on purpose. So yeah, you're right. I think because it's like as fans, we can't read into a lot of that shit too much, because we have to understand that when those Rebels episodes were being made, Bad Batch wasn't even on the freaking radar, because we hadn't even seen episode 7 yet, right? Like Bad Batch had been conceptualized for season 7, but as its own show and like really developing Rex and stuff. I mean, it would be a stretch to say that they had thought that far ahead to think that when you're writing Rebels, hey, make sure Rex says this like specifically, like I think so. I think as fans, again, reading into those sorts of things, sort of like, for example, on Boba Fett's throne, I can't remember exactly what it said. Maybe I'll put up a little clip just on the screen, but it was like when Boba Fett takes the throne in Jabba's palace, around the outside of it in the lettering, the original Ralph McQuire like Sith lettering, it says something about Boba Fett, right? And it's like, well, it's like, is that an Easter egg, or do you take that as canon? Or in The Mandalorian, when it was they were showing the Death Star getting blown up in the cantina, and then in Urabesh letters around it was saying like the original opening crawl, right? So it's like you take those like we read into things so much now. It's like, is that just an Easter egg, or are you really taking that as that's actually canonically what was being like happening? You know what I'm trying to say? It's so that's why I was making the point in a Facebook page, like they gotta like be careful throwing cute little Easter eggs in that have absolutely nothing to do with anything whatsoever, like nothing, like, because we're gonna read into it and we're gonna try to connect it with something. And I think taking no for an answer, like, oh, it literally means nothing, it's just an Easter egg for fun. Yeah. I'm very winded.
Yeah, a lot of talking. But yeah, I think this is a good point to wrap up this podcast episode. There's definitely a lot of stuff we discovered this week that we could bring up into some more podcasts and get the ball really rolling. And there's some things I want to talk to you about offline, as far as this channel and not just podcasting, but starting our gaming up for the viewers. But we'll talk about that offline. So I guess if you don't have anything, I'll close out with this is Frenchie's World signing off. I salute you till next time.
Yeah, until next time, everyone, make sure you check out Frenchie's new Warhammer series that he's adding on top of his Empire War series, and we'll see you next week after episode 11.